Hey, what's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to the channel. This is Nikki Cohn-Byrd, wellness coach with Alliance Nation, and this is the second installment of Fuel Your Fire. Actually, the psychology behind habit change and making your weight loss goals stick. So last week we talked about the difference between the real world and the ideal world dilemma, and this week I want to talk to you guys about pattern interrupts. So what are pattern interrupts? Well, we'll get to that. First of all, let's talk a little bit about how habits are formed. So you guys have a brain, right? It's a really powerful tool. And to form habits, what your brain does is every single time that you do an action, your brain associates that with an emotion. So this emotion could be positive or it can be negative. So for example, emotion when eating a piece of pizza, positive. Emotion when putting your hand over a burning flame, negative. So it associates that action with a certain emotion in your mind. So now, every single time you go to do that action again, your brain can pull onto that emotion, okay? So whenever you have that emotion associated with an activity, your brain actually develops neural pathways. So you're growing new connections every single time you do a new action. So whenever you go back and you practice this action over and over, or you do it again, your brain can recall the emotion that it's associated with. And every single time you do this action, the more that you do it, the stronger the connection becomes. You're actually strengthening the neural network that you've associated with this action. So if it's a positive action and you go and you do it again and again, so for example, every day after work you come home and you're super busy. One day you go into the freezer and you pull out your tub of Ben & Jerry's. They're a positive connection. And then every day after that, you do the exact same thing. So your neuronal connections are becoming so strong that eventually what happens? It becomes a habit. And we do it without even thinking about it. So a lot of the times when people make excuses like, oh, like I get cravings or I just can't kick this bad habit, what they're really saying is they just don't know how to turn their mind so they can stop doing that habit. So the habit that you just formed, like I said, is an actual neuro association with an emotion that creates something that's practiced consistently over and over again. So what do you need to do to change that habit? Well, essentially, habits are patterns. And what do we need to do to create new patterns is we need to break old ones. And in order to break old ones, we need, what I was talking about at the beginning, pattern interrupts. So specifically, just like it says, a pattern interrupt is a way to interrupt your pattern. So in order to stop you from continuously doing this action that you've been doing over and over, because, just like you're putting your hand in the freezer and pulling out the Ben & Jerry's, that's an action that's almost on autopilot. You need something to halt that pattern and rewire your brain to focus on different emotion. So once you disconnect that action of your habit with the emotion, and then you're able to reprogram your mind to either A, associate that action with a new emotion, or to change the habit or the action completely. So pattern interrupts can be anything from something super simple, like if you get up in the middle of the night and you have a craving, maybe your pattern interrupt is simply just to count to 10 and see if you still have that craving. Or maybe instead of counting to 10, it's simply just to drink water until you don't have that craving anymore. Or it could be super duper extreme pattern interrupt. And this is actually an example that I would like to share with you guys because it's something that I used with one of my previous clients. So remember that whenever you have a habit, you're associating an emotion with this action. So, most of our cravings, most of our overeating, most of our indulgences, most of our eating sweet treats, high in carbs and stuff like that comes because we know that the emotion that's associated with that action is incredible pleasure, is making you feel good, it's raising those happiness hormones. It's just your body knows how you're gonna feel, which is great after you have that sugary goodness, full of carb, whatever food that it is that you choose, that you can't stop eating and kick that craving, right? So in order to change the emotion that we associate with it, there's nothing wrong with eating those kind of foods, but remember, as an exception and not the rule. So if you have an issue with overeating and with cravings, try a pattern interrupt that's extreme enough to break your emotion. So this is the example that I wanted to share. So I had a client who was just addicted to peanut butter, right? Like peanut butter was her weakness. But the thing is, she was a mother of 3, and her kids loved peanut butter, and she didn't want to not have it in the house. So, you know, like in order to maybe not have it, you can just completely remove all temptations, right? But her kids loved peanut butter, and she didn't want to eat this peanut butter because as soon as she started eating it, she would eat and eat and eat and eat, and then all of a sudden, a whole tub later, where'd the peanut butter go? This girl loved peanut butter. Like, peanut butter is awesome, but she loved peanut butter. That was one of her biggest weaknesses. She couldn't lay off the peanut butter. So what I wanted to do was practice a pattern interrupt with her. Now, after working with her for a while, we went kind of deep, and we saw that she had some issues with her father. He wasn't a great dad. He was even abusive at some point. And she would say that she didn't keep any pictures of him in the house because she didn't want the emotions that were triggered whenever she saw his picture to come up and ruin her day, and she started thinking about this all the time. So what we actually tried was the peanut butter that was in the cupboard, okay? So every single time that she had a need to go get that peanut butter, what I asked her to do was put a picture of her father right in front of the jar, okay? So it wasn't hidden. We're not hiding the jar. She knew it was there. I mean, when her kids wanted it, she asked her husband to go grab it so they could actually have it. But when she wanted it, we had this picture of her father sitting in front of her peanut butter jar. And what happened was, every single time she opened the cabinet and saw the peanut butter jar with the picture in front of it, that emotional trigger of not pleasure from eating the peanut butter, but the pain from her relationship with her father was the first thing that she thought of before she reached for that food. It was so intense, it was so strong that she didn't even want to keep going. Just that visual image, she closed the cabinet automatically, and she didn't get the peanut butter. And that happened the first time that she tried that, okay? So now, practicing that over and over, like, we're not gonna be doing that forever, but what had happened was she simply created a new emotion that was tied to her experience or her habit of grabbing the peanut butter. So now every time she thinks about going to grab the peanut butter, even now that we don't have the picture there anymore, she still associates it with the picture of her father. So it's not as extreme anymore, like she's gonna completely lose her love for peanut butter, but the thing that turned into a habit was to not grab the peanut butter and to simply just say no. So now what happened is she's learned to actually just enjoy the peanut butter with her family when they do, which is maybe once or twice a week and not the whole jar every single night. So if you guys are struggling with something that has to do with eating and overeating and indulgences and sweets and stuff like that, remember that it's just a habit, and all habits can be broken. And the first thing that you need to do is change your emotional association with that action, and then insert a pattern interrupt to break that connection and either associate a new emotion or create an entirely new habit. Pattern interrupts, they work with anything. Even if you're maybe like scared at doing sales calls, I would say instead of having the habit of picking up the phone, dialing the number, and then just hanging up, maybe instead you pick up the phone, you dial the number, you put it down, and then you watch 5 seconds of a funny YouTube video or a motivational YouTube video, you feel better, you pull the phone back up, and you make that call. It's just something that's interrupting your normal habitual pattern of the action that you would normally do or not do. And hopefully that helps. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. You know where to find me. I'll put all my contact information on the channel, and stay tuned for next week. Y'all have a great day.